The world is constantly changing. We're constantly learning new things. You can never stick to one single formula. You always have to look at what the new trends are. Create something that's still familiar in terms of the client's brand, but also something that is new enough that it's exciting. If you want to have fantastic general knowledge, it's definitely the career to get into.
Welcome to the TheatreArtLife podcast, and hello. We're putting the spotlight on those who create live entertainment around the globe, the culture creators and the backstage masters. My name is Anna Robb.
And my name is Anna Aguilera. On this episode, we will be talking to Neill Frank about the role video has in live entertainment.
Neill is a creative director and producer born in South Africa, currently based out of Dubai. He's been in the film industry since 2001 and he moved to Dubai in 2008. And he's currently the head of digital content at Evolution Events. He's passionate about creating beautiful artistic content based on great creative ideas. Hello, Neill. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Anna.
Thank you for coming and joining us today. So we want you to start by giving us a little bit of a brief overview of your career and how you got to become a head of digital content.
Sure. So I started studying photography and video production shortly after high school. And I then moved into the film industry in Cape Town. The film industry in Cape Town was kind of born out of the military. So it became a very popular service destination for international production companies. And I pretty much started at the bottom. So I started as a production runner. And from production running, I went into production coordinating and then production management. And that was pretty much a mix of doing TV commercials as well as feature films. And yeah, it was a really humbling experience. As a production runner, I had to do things like, clean other directors' fish ponds, go and buy kitty litter. So it was very much during that time, there was this, kind of system where you had to pay your dues in order to be able to move up. And I think, thankfully, that's kind of changed now. So, youngsters are able to go into film school, come out with fantastic reels. But, at that point in time in South Africa, we didn't really have any film institutions that you could walk out of, with a great show reel. And then pretty much from doing that, I worked on a feature film with another South African guy who moved over to Dubai. And the one day he called me, and in Cape Town, it's very seasonal as well. So we do many TV commercials during the summer, and then wintertime, it rains a lot. So yeah, it was winter. I was home, and then I got the phone call, and he said, "Oh, there's an events company in Dubai that's starting up their own film department, and would I be interested to join this events company?" And I didn't really know much about Dubai, but it sounded like a really interesting opportunity. And yeah, and that was it. I think within a week, I had my bags packed, and I flew over, and I was in Dubai, and that's where the event content part of my career started.
How do you transition from film to video? What's similar and what's different?
You mean film to live events, right?
Yeah, video content for live events.
Yeah, so look, I mean, with film, it's obviously it's almost like a large event. You've got your call sheet, you've got your production schedule, you've got quite a lot of moving parts that you need to bring together. You've got your camera department, you've got your wardrobe, props, and everything has to come together to make that film shoot work. So when I transitioned, the idea was that we had a film department, and the film department would provide content for the event section of the business, but at the same time, we would still be doing TV commercials. And so it wasn't that difficult of a transition initially. There were quite a few new things for me to consider. So in a live event space, the film isn't always the star. It's quite often supplements or augments what else is happening with the event. But it's still always storytelling, and storytelling to me is the most important thing. Whether it's video, whether it's a feature film, whether it's a TV commercial, they all at the center of them, they've got great storytelling. So it actually transfers really well.
And what sort of, video content for live entertainment aspects have you done? For those who don't really understand the industry, what sort of video content are you playing for events in Dubai when you create it?
Sure. So I did a Dubai World Cup gala dinner. So that's for the big horse race scene in Dubai, or event in Dubai. That's then very much a case of intertwining video content with live performers. So the right way to do it would have been to have had motion tracking suits and to then create content that interacts with performers. We kind of did it in a more basic way, where we would create some animated elements, send those videos over to performers. They would then choreograph against that, send their videos back to us, and we would then adjust the animation accordingly. But I mean, that was very much a case of creating content where we had dancers, and as the dancers dance on stage, the content would actually react to their movements. So yeah, I mean, it's I guess that's not really storytelling, but it really augments what the performers do.
It's enhancing the experience, basically.
Exactly. And then, that's very much, the case throughout all of those events. Sometimes we have pieces where the content very much takes the center stage, and we will have a brand film, or something that's really powerful that communicates the client's brand, and then we would have live performers coming in. So it's almost this kind of intricate dance between the film being the star and then kind of taking the back seat in order for the performers to shine. Yeah, I would say the Dubai World Cup gala dinner. We also did the Dubai International Parachute Championship. And again, that's very much extremely large screen format, a combination of filmed content, animated content, and then performers. Whether I think for the Dubai International Parachute Championship, we had people coming down on bungee cords from the top of the screen, which was a massive screen, must have been about 60 meters across. But yes, so it's a lot more involved, and you obviously you think about those events differently because you have this multi-dimensional aspect to it. It's the music, it's the content, it's the performers, fireworks, quite often. So yeah, I guess there are just many more layers in terms of what you need to consider when you approach it creatively.
So, how do you see the relationship between video and live events? How do you see it evolving in the near future?
I think under our current climate is a really good example where we're currently pitching on a lot of augmented reality or virtual events. And so what is happening now is we're seeing more and more people interacting with content. So whether it's AR or VR, there is a trend and there is a natural move towards that type of content. I think COVID has kind of fast-tracked that. And I do think that once we come out of this, that we will still have our traditional elements of event content, but we will have this added section where we will see people interacting with content more.
And as I guess the technology evolves and everybody keeps embracing those new things, and it can, like you said, I think from social media, it can be driven through social media aspects of it, then that gets pulled into the live entertainment realm as you see, all those augmented, what you can do with your own face and what you can do with, all of these fun stuff that happens in social media realm, then becomes part of a pitch for an entertainment sort of aspect as well.
Absolutely, exactly. Whether it's Snapchat, again, yeah, I think technology is moving in a direction where we kind of becoming used to video developing into the real world and interacting with it. Even with the live events now, it's all about keying out people in real time. Technology is moving very fast, whether it's Ventus or Notch. So yes, I definitely see content going in that direction more, where we have that real time keying and interaction element to it.
The other day I saw a picture on social media and I thought it was quite funny. It was a picture of a woman with a mask on taking a picture, like a selfie, with an ice cream between the phone and her. And the sort of title on it said, "Imagine showing this to somebody in 1995 and asking them what was happening. And I thought that was really funny because like they wouldn't know why she's wearing a mask. They wouldn't know why she's doing a selfie. They don't know what a selfie is. And our human behavior changes so quickly and so fast right now. And I think that's quite fascinating. And then you guys in your realm have to be at the forefront of, I guess, not seeming dated, right, with what's going on and with what you're doing and presenting it at an event.
I think that's all part of the industry, and that's what makes the creative aspect of it so interesting because it's all problem solving. The world is constantly changing. We're constantly learning new things. You can never stick to one single formula. You always have to look at what the new trends are. And again, I mean, my philosophy is always I take the creative, and the creative needs to be the central part of it, and then try and see what's out there, what's new, what are people reacting to, and out of a good idea, implement those different technologies.
And how do you make that work and intersect with the architecture of the place, the light designer, the sound designer, the choreography, and all this, the acrobatics you mentioned, the head punches? That video is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fine balancing act, but it's kind of like cooking. It's a little bit of a recipe. Every single one of those elements are so important. I mean, music. Whether it's film, whether it's live events, it plays such an integral part. So yeah, getting the right music to suit the visuals, or maybe even the visuals suiting the music, and then it's just rehearsal. And I think again, you have to think in many, many more dimensions when you're doing live event content, because you have the performer, because you sometimes have the content being the star, and you've got the performer being the star. Yeah, it's just I don't, we just basically have to really balance everything very, very carefully. And instead of just having your offline cuts and then your online cuts, we then do go through many, many series of rehearsals. And sometimes something that the performers will do will inform what we end up doing in terms of content. And sometimes the content will push the performers to change their performance slightly. And so it really is, it's a fantastic collaboration between a lot of people. And that's also something that I really enjoy about it, because it's not just my vision. We have the choreographer, we have the music composer, we've got all of these different people who all have fantastic creative ideas. And it's just about diluting that, and or distilling it, sorry, and getting it down to something that then ultimately just works, and that people enjoy watching.
And how do you, in always these kind of projects, you've got the balance between what the client wants and needs, etc., and then your ability to be creative as you make that content. And how do you navigate that relationship with clients sort of putting the pressure on and you getting what you want creatively out of the project?
Yeah, so I think this is probably 90% of every creative director's job, is to try and build that relationship, and it's a two-way street. So from a creative perspective, it's a interesting challenge to me, because you have a client's brand, and you can't break the brand. So you have to find ways inside of those parameters to create something that's still familiar in terms of the client's brand, but also something that is new enough that it's exciting. And if you don't have a good relationship with your client, where they understand your vision and where they begin to trust you, then you're always going to end up with something that's too generic, and completely in line with the client's brand guideline. But I mean, I really enjoy that process, because I feel like if you have free reign to do absolutely anything, then it's not always conducive to good creative. Good creative sometimes comes from having those restrictions, but finding really clever ways inside of those restrictions to do something really clever and quirky and fun.
So it means you really need to know your the company you're working for or you're creating content for, the brand and the client. And I guess you've learned a lot of things through that. Is there something that's been really interesting in the past years that you said, "Oh, I didn't even think this existed," or "This was a thing"?
I mean, I can't point at anything specific, but I mean, again, that is the great thing about my job is, I mean, I've had to learn about oil and gas. I've worked with, some next gen technology companies in the UAE who work on things that I didn't even know was possible. It's so broad. I mean, I think it's if you want to have fantastic general knowledge, it's definitely the career to get into. It's extremely diverse, and I'm constantly getting a new client with a new product or a new service, and I need to immerse myself in what that client's doing. And I mean that's what keeps it really interesting and really fresh.
What's it like in the UAE? You know, you're coming from South Africa, and obviously there's a lot of multiculturalism within the UAE as in the companies that you work with and for. And how is that? Is it a challenge? Does that add to your challenge of working with so many different cultures, or is that also a part of the challenge?
Definitely part of the challenge. I think every country has its own sense of humor, and I mean, even here with friends, and I've got friends from all over the world, jokes that would work in South Africa, wouldn't necessarily work in England or in Holland or wherever. So it is. But I mean, what's also really interesting is that there are certain emotional hit markers that seem to be pretty universal. And I think as long as you focus on those and you don't try to make it too region specific, you're normally okay. But again, I mean, it's great to see or hear how other people think about things, and so it's changed my perspective on a lot of the topics that we tackle creatively, and it's definitely made my creative sense richer.
What do you say it's either challenging or rewarding while working for corporate events?
So challenging, I think, almost goes back to our previous point where, sometimes you'll have a product or you'll have a service that just on the outside seems so dry, and you wonder, what am I going to do with this to make it entertaining? But then it's a double it's a dual-edged sword where at the same time that then becomes the challenge is to take that, and the drier the subject matter is, sometimes the more fun it is to try and turn
Like
that
oil and
into
gas.
something really cool. Like oil and gas, exactly.
I can't imagine trying to make that I mean, I know that's what you do, but it seems a big leap for me to go from oil to gas to something beautifully visually and
Oh, I
entertaining.
mean, there was actually, I think the first TV commercial that I did in the UAE was for a gas company, a natural gas company. And we came up with this idea of the gas coming out of the ocean, and we followed the little bubbles up, and then the energy flew out from the ocean, kind of traveled over the desert, and we had these different little visual cues where you could kind of follow the energy, but without it being, too blatantly CGI. And then once it reached the city, we would see the street lamppost started switching on, and the city started switching on. And we had a fantastic music composer out of Sweden, and he did a great, really emotive track for us. And so yeah, so that was a good example of, you would think, natural gas, how great could natural gas be? But the whole city of Abu Dhabi being lit up one light at a time was visually actually great. Like it was a fantastic TV commercial there.
No, well, I have experienced your work myself, so I know how you were able to transform very dry stuff to something that's amazing. It's a talent.
Thank you.
And so, is there any part of the process from getting the gig to the end product that is the most satisfying for you? Is it the research phase? Is it the design phase? Is it the event happening? What part of the process do you enjoy the most?
I think that's the great thing about events and about film is that you always have this opportunity to get a real-time reaction from people. So once the film goes on the big screen, and I can see, the theater or the event hall packed, and I can look at people's faces and I can see their reactions. that's probably the most satisfying part of it for me. And I think there are very few other industries where you get that kind of or that ability to see how people are reacting to your work. And it's really satisfying, especially if they enjoy it, of course.
It's probably different than, perhaps your film work, because the film goes out and gets distributed, but you're not there for that immediate first reaction, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a great example. I mean, the only way now that you really know with sending a video out would be through YouTube likes or some kind of data analytics. So yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's a great thing with live events, is actually being there, feeling the atmosphere inside of the room and seeing people reacting to whatever content you created.
You say that's from everything that your job entitles. Is that your favorite part of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit narcissistic, isn't it? But I guess so.
There's nothing wrong with it. I think most people in entertainment have that moment where that's the most, and it reminds us why we do what we do, because some of the long hours leading up to that moment can be
Yeah, it's exactly
fairly brutal, right?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's that moment of validation, which I think a lot of people always crave. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's definitely my favorite part of the gig.
And if you could change anything in the way, like either video works with live entertainment or how the live entertainment industry works in general, would you change anything? What would it be?
I think you can always change something. I think right now, and I mean, I think it's a pretty big thing throughout the industry, is just always timelines. I just always wish that I had more time. But the deadline gets set, and sometimes the deadlines are crazy, and we push towards producing something and obviously doing the best that we possibly can. I just always wish that I had a little bit more time. So yes, if clients could give us a little bit more time, I'd be super happy.
Do you think that's a particularly a UAE thing as well in terms of the work, or is that something you also experienced in South Africa?
Well, I mean, in South Africa, I did TV commercials, and all of the prep work was done before we went into production. So I'm not sure. So I guess, Anna, you're actually a better person to tell me whether it's different in Singapore.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
Hong Kong and stuff. I feel like, honestly, the UAE has been the most pressure in terms of timeline in places that I've worked with.
yeah,
Here in China and in Asia, it's a different kind of hard, but it's still hard. But I felt like the UAE is really like relentless in terms of this is going ahead, and it's an experience. And I think that raises the bar
mm.
for people in the area where they've got to really work hard and fast. I mean, if we want to talk about work-life balance, that's another thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely, the expectations get set very high, and I think people do. I think especially in the UAE, they have a lot. You talk about all that technology and the virtual reality, and it's just, you're very at the forefront of a lot of those things, integrating them into events, because they're ambitious over there and they've got money, and they want to see it. And I think that's a great place to be for being at the forefront of that stuff.
absolutely. No, again, I think there is, with the good there is bad, and with the bad there's good, and that's definitely the case with the UAE. Is that yes, we love technology here, and we really get pushed to use new things, and sometimes we're a little bit nervous because it might not be a piece of technology that's really been tried and tested. But it's great. It just means that we get to play with crazy things. Yes, there's a lot of pressure, but also, sometimes under pressure you create some of your best pieces. I think maybe even going back to my earlier point, maybe too much time isn't a good thing. Sometimes when you're under pressure, the idea just comes out, and you look at it and you go, that actually works. But yes, we're very, very fortunate here to have people who are really interested in technology and in big ideas. I think there are very few other places around the world that gives you the opportunity to put together such large scale events with technology and all of the bells and whistles.
Well, thank you so much, Neill, for your time today. We really appreciate you sharing with us your work and your life and your thoughts on the industry. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Please
Please write a review on our podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, and let your friends know about us. You can learn more about TheatreArtLife by visiting our website at www.theatreartlife.com. And you can also follow us on social media and leave your questions and comments on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, or YouTube. We want to thank David Sire for composing the music for our podcast and Michelle Shirata, who is our sound engineer. We are your hosts, Anna and Anna, and this is the Theatre Art Life podcast, where we put the spotlight on those who create live entertainment around the world.